Click on the subscribe button, especially the bell on the right side. Otherwise, you will miss the latest videos. Sometime before Mark Boni ji comes and teaches us about Ashtak Varga. So if we can spend 2 minutes, I will talk about the subject that you're going to teach at hand, is perfections, and that he has simplified it. It's a technique for the Indians present here and those who know Brighu Chakra Paddhati. It's exactly similar to that. But when we teach BCP in our course, Brighu Chakra Paddhati, we teach only part 1. In the magazine, we publish part 2, where you can predict to the date, exact date of the event. Perfections, as I know, and Kenneth should correct me, I had a lady friend called Nora who's into Western astrology and Indian astrology also. And she told me when I published BCP way back 15 years back in 2008 in the magazine Saptarishis Astrology. So she told me at that time that this similar technique is there in French astrology, okay, called perfections, and she knew already about it. Okay. She's made several predictions about it to me, which have come absolutely accurate to the date. Okay. Of course, there is one prediction that is still yet to come, correct, which is in August, my health is going to go supremely bad. Now, that's a prediction obviously not want to happen. But anyway, before we come to the technique, let's quickly know about Kenneth Miller. And I thank Gary Gomes for introducing me to Kenneth. And please, if you can, let us know about your astrological journey in a few minutes, or within a few minutes.
Sure. My astrological journey. So it started, here in the West, the newspapers, when people read newspapers, would have a horoscope column based on your sun sign. And when I was a child, my mom would read that section about me, and that's how I kind of became aware of it. And as soon as I was able to read, on the same page of the newspaper that the comic strips was the horoscope, and I would, I'd read the horoscope. So I had kind of an awareness of that. And then when I was about 12 years old, I found an astrological magazine and saw for the first time what a chart looked like. And I remember thinking, of course you would look at all the planets and not just the sun. And so that was my first awareness of birth chart astrology. And I started buying books. I had a friend that was also interested, and self-taught myself how to calculate a chart. Of course, this is all Western astrology, and it just then became a hobby of mine and something, a bit of an avocation, where I studied Western astrology under a teacher, and then I studied on my own, and I would occasionally do charts for friends or acquaintances, and I would occasionally teach a class at a bookstore or something like that. And then in about and I kept hearing about Indian astrology and how accurate it was with the predictions, but I also heard that it used the sidereal zodiac, and I was like, that just doesn't make any sense. How can someone be a Taurus moon and an Aries moon at the same time? It didn't make sense to me. So I sort of ignored it, even though I was interested in quite a bit of other Indian topics. But eventually we fast forward to 1995-ish, and I'm actually on vacation, and I'm on vacation in a town that has a very prominent Western Vedic astrologer. And I thought, I should get a reading and see really what it's all about. Yeah. And I went to see him, And the reading was so good, I was like, I want to start studying this. Like, what do I do? And he says, well, you're in luck. Our next big international conference is in the town you live in. I live in San Diego, California. So I attended that. And of course, all the lectures were over my head. I really didn't know what was going on, but it lit a fire in me that then, propelled me into Indian astrology. And then around the year 2000, my father passed away, and I started reevaluating my life and what I'm doing, and I made the decision that I wanted to become a professional astrologer. So kind of went that route here. I studied, I had a lot of tutors, and then I studied at the American College of Vedic Astrology. I passed the Council of Vedic Astrology's 2 exams. Went to India several times, studied with Dr. Chark a bit here and there. And then I think it was in 2005, I became a professional astrologer and started, doing client readings and teaching. And then through that journey, I volunteered at different Western, actually, I was on the board of the Council of Vedic Astrology for a while. I was on the board of one of the Western astrological organizations. I was president for a couple of years of Kepler College, which was a college that gave degrees, bachelor degrees and master's degrees in astrology, but they lost the legal right to do that. So now they still teach astrology, but now it's, it's like a vocational institution. So that's my journey. I mean, it's probably not too dissimilar from a lot of you, although the advantage of being born in India is you're really like steeped in the culture. Here it's astrology's kind of kept at arm's length, and it's considered a weird topic by mainstream culture. But in India you don't have that.
No, it's the same thing. It's actually the same thing, Kenneth. If I can take some more time of yours and the audience, I spent more than 2.5, 3 decades in astrology, and I still don't tell a single friend of mine or any relative that I'm into astrology. Even when I was in the media industry, I never said that, not to my relatives, and it's taboo even right now because of another reason. Usually astrologers in India are considered thugs. It's like if you go to them, they'll end up selling you gemstones, recommending too many pujas, upais of 1 lakh rupees, $2,000 actually, and all that. So it's still like that, and it's something that I feel shy. I mean, I don't tell about that to anybody. So it's still very difficult. Yes, Dr. Raman, K.N. Rao, all these people have tried bringing it to a science for the educated people, but yet the normal perception in India is, I mean, you don't make your daughter marry an astrologer. Honest, no father here will give her the hand of his daughter to somebody who's having an astrology business. It's not, at least in cities, it's not something decent. Yes, a daughter would be given if you are an MBA, etc., and all that. Anyway, enough of this chatter. Hello, hello. So, so enough of my chatter. Sorry, there was some disturbance.
Yeah.
So I would now unmute. I would stop others from speaking. So I put them on no. They can't unmute themselves. They can probably chat. So I would want you to give a brief background about the technique and how you're going to make it easy. And take your time. I mean, we have some time. All yours.
Okay, beautiful. I'm going to share my screen because I did, if I may.
Yes, you're the co-host also.
Okay, fantastic. Let's see if this works. Okay, now I gotta just bring everyone back here. And bring back the chat window. So if anyone has a question, I can see it. Well, first of all, thank you for having me presentation. And I hope that this will be interesting to everyone. I was told to basically do a beginners to intermediate presentation. So that's kind of what I've prepared here. I will go into the background of the technique and also its universal appearance in astrology, East and West. We'll go through, and it's really very simple to understand. But like everything in astrology, it can be as complex as you want it in the application. And so like every technique, I'm teaching it, quote, at a beginner's level in terms of introducing the concept, but the better you can read a chart, the better you'll be able to utilize this technique, like all predictive techniques, and if you're, if you're a beginner in this work, then, you'll need to practice it, like we practice all techniques. All right, that's me. I don't know why I kept that up. Let's just go off. So imagine, if you will, that you're tired of astrology, you decided to take a year off, you decide that you're gonna, meditate in a cave for a year. You don't bring a laptop, you don't bring an ephemeris, and in fact, you've just flushed all the like transit information from your mind because you just want to be like free from astrology, and you're quietly meditating in the cave, and then suddenly a villager comes up and says, there's an astrological emergency, we need you to interpret this chart, and they pull out a piece of paper. The beauty of this technique, which in English we call profections, is that you don't need a computer, you don't need any math skills really, other than the ability to count up to 12, and you can look at any birth chart, any Rashi chart, and be able to implement this technique. And that's the beauty of it. That's one of the attractiveness of the technique, and I think this is why it was popular both East and West. Now, what is profections? Here I just say it's perhaps one of the oldest techniques in astrology because it appears very early in the Greek astrological literature, and then it appears in different ways in the Indian astrological literature, which I'll get to in the next slide. And if you do Varshafal, if you've studied Varshafal, or what we call solar return in the West, then you already know this concept, which is basically the houses of the horoscope. And I apologize if you're a North Indian chart style person. Everything here is South Indian. I had a little mishap and I couldn't recover in time for the talk today. But you can convert. Here we're looking at a Taurus rising chart. And when you're born, the first house turns on, just like when you study the Vimshottari Dasha system, and let's say the moon period starts, you look to where the moon is, and you look at what house it's in, and you look at what the moon's aspecting and what aspect the moon is receiving. It's the same general concept with profections, and that is that when you're born, the first house turns on after your first birthday. Now here, I don't know, I know different cultures count differently, but here in the West, when you're born, the first year of your life, your parents will say, oh, she's 6 months old, she's 9 months old. And then after a year, you're 1 year old. So from 0 to 1 is the first house. And then when you celebrate your first birthday, the second house turns on. And then 12 years later, Taurus turns on again. When you're 24, 12 years later, Taurus turns on again. So an easy way to do this is as long as you could remember what multiples of 12 are, you can figure out what the perfection of the year is. And did I say it? And so the Lord of the house that's on, we call the Munta Lord. What the house that's turned on is called the Munta point. This is language from Varshafal that I'm gonna kind of use, and I'll also use the English word perfections. But you already know this technique probably in 3 different ways. You know it for as Sunil was talking about, the Brighu Chakra, Paddhati gives this technique. I haven't studied the Deva Keralam text, but from what I see on the internet and what everyone's talking about, this technique is definitely present there. It's also present in Varshafal. As I said, it's called the Munta point, and the Munta Lord is the Lord of that sign. And then in Parashara, depending on I think this is actually in all the versions, at least all the English versions that I've seen. There's a chapter on the Sudarshana Chakra, which is the same principle where you're advancing 1 house per year. And then if you go over to ancient Greek astrology, it's all over that in their texts, but it's mostly, and a lot of this is they're kind of repeating each other and introducing the basic level of the technique. But if you're interested in seeing, well, what did the Greeks do with this technique? Vedius Valens in his if you were only to read one thing about perfections, this would be the one book on the Western side of the equation. And of course, modern people are using it. So I've kind of, oh yes, I see in the chat. Yeah, Mark Boney's a great lecturer, and Ashaka Vargas Simplified, I'm sure is going to be a great lecture. So definitely stay tuned for that after this. Even if I put you to sleep, rouse yourself so that you can attend, because that'll be a good show. All right. So calculating the Munta, basically it's 1 house per year. So the Greek way is what I just taught you a few minutes ago, which is starting from the first house at age 0, or when you're born, you simply count. So that, for example, if you were 39 years old right now, we know that 36 starts the clock again, as it were. So 36, 37, 38, 39. For this person, it would be a 4th house perfected year, which means Leo would turn on, which means the sun would become important, and Jupiter's in there, so it would also be active, more active than normal. And here we see that they're in a 1-7 relationship, and we would start delineating what topics might be good for that year. Now, you can also go to the month and go to the day, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But just to introduce the basic concept is the first level is this is going to turn on for a year. And by year, I mean from birthday to birthday. So that's the Greek way of doing it. But let's say you don't like to count to 12. Maybe you get bored when you get up to 6. There is another way to do it. What I've seen in the Indian texts, the way they teach it is basically you get the person's age, you find out what their rising sign is. So let's see, I don't even remember what this example is, but let's say their rising sign is Virgo. We know that Virgo is the 6th sign of the Zodiac. And so if the person in front of you is 31 years old and they're Virgo rising, and that's 6, 31 plus 6 is 37. And then that you always start the perfection from the rising sign, and you reduce it by multiples of 12. So that would be 36 plus 1. Actually, did I do that right? Yeah, it would be 7. And then you subtract multiples of 12, which would be 36. And that would tell you that Aries would be the perfected. No, that doesn't make sense. What am I doing here? When am I getting confused? If you're 37 years old with Scorpio rising, +8 would be 39. Then you subtract 36. Oh, I see. My basic math is very early here, people. So I do apologize. All right. So let's just use this example. So Scorpio is the 8th sign. Someone's 37 years old. 37 + 8 is 45. Now you subtract multiples of 36, of 12, which in this case would be 36. And you subtract that from 45. That would give you 9. That would mean it's a 9th sign perfected year, which would be Sagittarius. Which we'd also get if Scorpio was rising, and we did this method and we noticed that, oh, 36 is going to start with the rising sign, and then we count 36, 37. So if you like to add numbers and stuff, this is a great way to do it, but otherwise you can just count to 12 going around the chart. Okay. Let's just move on. All right. What does manta mean? Manta means to run away or to protect, or a mantle, which is interesting. And it's, I think part of this meaning is because it does advance through the zodiac. And I've already told you that the manta lord is the ruler of the manta sign, or we could call it the perfected lord of the year. That's just means the same thing, whether we're using English or terminology from Indian astrology. You can also count the months, keeping in mind the birthdays. So let's go back to this chart. What do I mean by that? Okay, so let's go back to this person's 39. So we'll start here at 36, 37, 38, 39. Now we have a Leo perfected year. Now you can further activate houses on a month-by-month basis, but you do have to keep in mind what their birthday is, because it's going to be a birthday month. So if this person was born on the 15th of the month, then the first month after their birthday, from the 15th to the 15th, that would be the first that would be Leo being active. And then the second month of their birth year, Virgo would be active. And then you simply go around perfecting the months. And then you can also get down to the day, although the days are, if you divide about 30 days into 12, you get 2.5. So it's about 2.5 days. You can narrow a window down even more. Now, in practice, if you're a consulting astrologer and you're seeing clients a lot, I often don't get down to the day. It's often not necessary to get down to the day, but you can. And in my example charts, we will get down to the day to show you that that is practical. It does have practical application. Any question? Okay, people are correcting my math. Multiples of 12 will always be the 12th house. So, okay, multiples of 12 will not be, well, it depends again on your culture. So here in America, your second year of life, we actually call 1 year old. So when I'm teaching this to Westerners, the first house is going to be 0, 12, 24. If you're in a culture that once you've celebrated your first year, they call that your second, like when you're born, they call it your first year birthday, then it's going to be the 12th house. So I hope this doesn't confuse you. And if India is a culture where that's what you do, that when you're born, you're considered 1 year old immediately, then yes, then your 12s are going to happen in the 12th house. But you kind of have to find out from your client how they calculate their own birthday, because here in the West, when someone's 36 years old, they mean they've actually finished their 36th year and now they're in their 37th. So it's just a cultural thing as to, where that 12, the multiples of 12 are going to be. All right. So basic perfections. The mantle lord is turned on. That is the lord of the sign. I've said that. Transits given by the mantle lord or the perfected lord of the year take on more significance than just like in a dasha system. The transits of the dasha lord become more important. Transits received by that lord are going to take, like in our previous example of Leo. So we're going to be paying attention more to the sun that year, aspects that are received by the natal sun, but also what is the transiting sun doing. We're going to consider possibly that the house that is perfected, the topics of that house may have some relevance that year. And we're going to pay attention to any planets that like transit through that house. They may bring prominent events. Now, of course, you want to, I don't use this technique in isolation. I mean, we will today, sort of. I mean, actually, I'm going to tie in dashas in this so you can see the connection. In astrology, we're always looking for repetition and multiple things telling you the same thing. And that's how you get confidence that, okay, there's a lot of astrological energy behind the prediction I'm about to make. So how to delineate? Again, this is probably basic astrology that everyone knows. You want to consider the nature and keywords of the house. You want to consider the planets in the house. You want to consider the house ruler, the mantle lord, or the perfected lord. Aspects made by the ruler. This is just an expansion of the previous slide. Is the perfected house receiving any aspects? Okay, any questions on the basics? And I'm going to go into my first example chart here. Whoops, hold on. Okay, so because time is short, instead of playing a guessing game, I'm just going to tell you what happened, and then we'll look to see if it seems obvious based on the astrology, or do we really have to push the chart to make it better? Okay, so Deepesh is telling me that the Indian way is your first year birth. You identify as 1 year old. So yeah, for people in the India culture, those multiples of 12 will be in the 12th house. So again, easy to remember. 12th house, multiples of 12. Okay, just to orient you, this is the birth chart. I've got the transit chart for the event, which we'll come to in a few slides. And this person is someone who won a lottery in America. We have lotteries here where people buy tickets for like $1 or $2, and millions of people are buying these tickets. And so the jackpot can be quite high. And then you pick 6 numbers. It's sort of a form of gambling. I mean, it is gambling. You basically pick 6 numbers in a certain range. And if your numbers come up, all of them, you win the jackpot. If some of the numbers come up, you win a lesser amount. This person, this woman, Jackie, she won $266 million US in 2010, a huge pile of money by anyone's accounting. So let's see, if she had come to us for a reading, we might have thought that, not that we ever want to encourage our clients to gamble, but is this going to be a good financial year for her? So this happened when she was 39 years old. And so again, by Western reckoning, 39. So for her, we would start in the first house with 36, 37, 38, 39. So it is a 4th house perfected year for her. This is Libra. Libra is ruled by Venus. Venus is in its own sign, and Jupiter is here as well. Jupiter rules the 9th house. Venus rules the 11th house. They're forming a kind of Dana yoga. If you count them when they're in angles, some people would say it's only applicable if they're in another wealth house like the 5th house. However, it's certainly not a bad indication, and it does look like this might be a good financial year for them, just looking at the perfected year. Now, Venus, at the time she won the jackpot, was transiting her 11th house. So this is the transit chart of the winning day. And the 11th house is the house of gains. Sun and Mercury are, of course, aspecting the 4th house. But I don't see that would be oh yeah, the sun rules the 2nd house, and it's aspecting the 4th on this day that she won. And so again, we don't have to, and she was running Rahu, Jupiter, Saturn. Rahu's in the 8th house. Now, usually, we wouldn't read it this way, but in dealing with lotteries and certain kinds of gambling, we do take the 8th house as the house for that, because the 8th house is the house of other people's money, and a lottery is a lot of other people's money, like literally millions of other people's money that you're winning. So in talking with other my expertise isn't in gambling astrology. There are those that do, and in my conversations with them, they say often the 8th house is involved in those kind of things. If you're wanting to put this in the North Indian chart style, just make your Lagna Cancer, and then go around the chart. The way you read a South Indian chart is you just go clockwise, and each box is a house. So you should be able to do a quick conversion and yourself. But if someone needs to post that, feel free. Okay, I think that's all. How am I doing on time? Let's go. So as I said before, we can do birthday months. So for example, if your birthday's August 17th, the first month will be from August 17th to September 17th. And then the days, because we're dividing a month by 12, they're about 60 hours long. So it's about 2.5 days where we can perfect down to the days. So now let's go back to this chart, and let's look at, and I didn't mention before, but the ruler of the 8th house. So she's running Rahu, Jupiter, Saturn. Rahu's in the 8th. Saturn, ruler of the 8th, is in the 10th, and it's aspecting, of course, in her natal chart, the 4th house. And was it doing anything in the transits? Not really. Although Jupiter and Saturn were in opposition, and there's that dictum that says Jupiter brings the opportunity and Saturn brings the wherewithal to manifest it. But here, I think just that the Jupiter is on and the Rahu's on. Also that Jupiter is aspecting Rahu. And if you're the type of person that gives Rahu a 9th house aspect, then they're mutually aspecting each other. And the 11th Lord is not Saturn, because Cancer is rising. So Saturn actually rules the 7th and the 8th, but it's in the 10th. So there is obviously a dramatic change in her, both in her career and her kind of place in the world with this win. All right. But what I want to illustrate is, and I didn't even, Venus is also, whoops, I didn't actually mean to draw that line, but Venus is also transiting the 11th. I don't know if I said that. Yeah, I think I said that at the beginning. Okay, so we'll pick up more as we look at this. So if you work out the monthly perfections, it was a Taurus month when this lottery winning happened, which was an 11th house in her natal chart, 11th house month. Venus, who's being activated because it's the mantle lord, not only is transiting the 11th house, but actually during the monthly perfected 11th house turns on. And then the day of the winning, the day that she actually won the ticket, Leo was activated, which is the second house, which has a whole bunch of stuff in it, including Mars, which rules the 5th and the 10th, in with the moon, which rules her rising sign, but a money house. So the year, the month, and the day, it's, even if you were not, fairly beginner level astrologer, you probably say, I think this is going to be a good, financial year for you, because all this money stuff is being activated. Like, we don't have to, twist and push and uncover like deep layers. It's just kind of, I hope, sort of obviously there. Okay. By the way, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the box. I am kind of tracking the comments as best I can. How are we doing on time? Okay, we're doing good. I was told a half hour, but I think I actually have almost an hour. Or do you need a break time in between, Sunil? When do you need me to stop and I'll quicken the pace?
No, it's good enough. How many minutes more do you think she would take?
How many can I have?
No, I know it's a very huge topic. Say 1 second. We have another 20 minutes before Mark comes in.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, no problem.
All
right. Let's see. How do I? Okay, just wanted to erase that mark I accidentally made. All right, so I think what I'll do is kind of run through some of the more advanced applications, and then we'll look at a couple other charts as time allows. And then you can play with this on your own, because my job is just to introduce you to the concept. All right, so I kind of already went over this and demonstrated it, but you want to look at transits to the mantle Lagna, or the perfected sign of the year. You want to look at transits by the mantle lord, and then anything that's going through the 4th house that year. For in this particular example, in the lottery example, if any planet was transiting through, you would also pay attention to that. But here's the secret, or I won't say these are secrets. These are like little known facts. You can actually perfect from anything. We use the rising sign because that's the most important thing, but you could also start with the moon as a rising sign and see, does that confirm what you're seeing from the Lagna? If we use Chandra Lagna and do perfections from that, does it confirm what we see from the Lagna? Let's say someone is coming to you and they're asking about children, or they're trying to conceive. You can then, since Jupiter is the karaka of children, you can use wherever Jupiter is as a Lagna and perfect from that and add that as another layer. So in practice, you don't want to perfect from everything, because then you would just get noise. I would let the client guide you, or if they had a question about a particular topic, that's when I might go, oh, okay, and look at the karaka or the bhavakarka, which I think I have a slide here. I'm just going to yeah. So this is a typical listing that almost any beginning Vedic astrology book will have. I just pulled this from Hart Defoe's Light on Life. The houses have bhavakarkas. So again, depending on the topic that you're interested in, you can actually perfect from that planet to get more information. For example, if they're asking about health, you could perfect from the sun and, see what that looks like. Now, I'll just throw this in because we're not usually exposed to Hellenistic astrology. And I kind of when I was telling my story about how I got into astrology, I left out the part that on my way to learning Indian astrology, I studied medieval Western astrology and Hellenistic astrology, two astrologies that are sort of similar in terms of the mindset. The techniques are different, but the mindset is similar to Vedic astrology. And I think that helped prepare me to get into Indian astrology. But here in Vallen's, the text, and his anthology, when he talks about perfections, he says you could perfect from the planets, and but they are associated with certain things. It's a little bit different, perhaps, than actually, there's a lot of overlap, some differences, some overlap, but I thought I would just throw this up here. You can, if you're watching the recording, you can pause it and you can experiment to see if those significations are appropriate. Okay, let's look at another example. This is from my own chart files, and this is someone who had an appendectomy, which is their appendix burst. The actual story is they were feeling uncomfortable. They had a pain in their stomach area. They went into the hospital. They did an ultrascan and they were like, well, we don't think you have appendicitis, but we can't really tell. There's something weird going on. But they decided to do surgery. And in fact, she did have a burst appendicitis, but there was so much pus that that they couldn't get the ultrasound couldn't show it. And it wasn't until they got in and cleaned all that out that they saw, oh, wow, this is like, really bad. So, 300-400 years ago, having your appendix burst would be a death sentence, but in modern times, it's a simple surgical procedure. But that's what happened. And it happened during her Saturn, Venus, and Jupiter dasha. That is Saturn Mahadasha, and then we're going 3 levels down, of course. And let me get this in front of me. She was 41 years old when this happened. So again, she's a Westerner, so she thinks of her age when she says she's 41 years old. We have to start the counting in house 1 with 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41. This puts us in the 6th house, ruled by Venus. Venus is over here in the 9th house with Mercury, which is a good placement. And in fact, this woman is a successful business person. She's an alternative healer. She has a booming practice, had a booming practice when this happened. She has clients like all over the world consult with her. She does alternative like nutrition care for people. And in fact, if you look at her chart, there's a lot of success and business stuff, and she's fantastic job. But this year she got appendicitis, and it was and by the way, Venus, according to Dr. Chark, at least Dr. Chark's book on medical astrology, the appendix is associated with Venus. Not that I would, if she were coming to me, I'd be like, okay, be careful this year of, Venus type health issues. But because it's well placed, I don't think I would have, this isn't something I predicted ahead of time. This is something I'm going back and analyzing after the fact. All right. So what was the, yes, blending, BCP and Tajika. Yeah, that's basically what we're doing with perfections. All right, the month. Let me just check my notes here. The month was, oh, yes, the month this happened was also the wait, is that possible? I have the day marked. Okay, let me just do some quick math here. 1, so February, March, April, May. June. Okay. Okay. So the month that the month that her appendix burst, it was the Capricorn was the perfected month. And that's, I should mark that for the next time I use this. That would, so at the yearly level, we have Venus active, and now at the monthly level, we have also Venus active along with Mercury. Mercury rules the 2nd and the 5th. This is actually a nice wealth yoga in the chart. But her appendix burst, and the day it burst was an Aquarius day, which is ruled by Saturn and has the sun and moon there. Now, you would think that, again, other than the fact that the spotlight is on the health year, you wouldn't necessarily think that, oh, there's going to be a health problem. But if there is going to be a health problem, it's probably going to be Venus related. By modern standards, it wasn't really a life-threatening thing. She went in, they cleaned her up, and she, recovered quickly. But this brings us to another principle that you can use that's kind of an advanced principle, but it's like easy to figure out. And that is that any planets that share the same relationship between the perfected sign and the Lagna will also activate. So what I mean by that is, this was a 6th house perfected year. So now we look to see, are there any planets that are 6 houses away from each other? And sure enough, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's kind of activating Jupiter. And if we count 6 houses from Jupiter, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we have Venus and Mercury being active. So this is kind of the clue that, oh, there might be a health thing going on when this, when this month comes up. What else did I want to say about this? Transits. Here are the transits. So Saturn was in the 4th house, but of course it was casting its aspect onto Libra, the 6th house. Venus and Mars were by transit, were also aspecting the 6th house. And of course, she needed surgery. Surgery is ruled by Mars. She's got this interesting pileup of malefics in the 11th. It causes some problems for her in her life for sure, but it also, because Saturn rules the 9th and 10th, and Mars rules the 7th, it actually, her whole work is client work. Also, her sun and moon, Jack, the 100 healers, and she is a healer that people often see after they've been to 100 other people. So a lot of her chart really like signifies what's happening in her life. But I think those are the clues that kind of push us like, oh, there might be like a health thing. Now, and Saturn is in the 6th house from the 6th. It sure is. It sure is. Yeah. Yeah. So it all, like, we just get multiples of 6th house, and also I put the D6 up here for those of you that use that for health. It is a Scorpio ruled chart. And of course, Mars is here with the Saturn, participating in some of that stuff. And it's also transiting. Oh yeah. Well, no, it's not transiting, but in the D6 chart, Saturn, Mars, and Venus are in Capricorn, which is in the 3rd house of this chart, but 2 malefics with Venus. All right. Okay, I just told you about this. And now, when you hear about this technique, your first instinct, once you get excited about it, if you get excited about it, is, well, wait a minute. does life repeat every 12 years? You're telling me we go around every 12 years. And of course, life doesn't repeat every 12 years because the dasha is going to be different. The transits are going to be in a different place, and the person is going to be in a different place in their life. So something that might manifest when you're 12 years old is going to be different when you're like 48. So it doesn't repeat every 12 years, but you can use, if you have someone, well, this is true of all of our astrological research. If you've got a good biography of them, that can help you. You know, if planets are expressing a certain kind of way at one stage of their life, they may express that way again later when they get reached. Do I have a few more minutes? I kind of lost track of where I am.
Yeah, if you could wrap it up.
Wrapping it up. Okay. So just very quickly, in the next couple of minutes, we get to age 49, and she has a very serious health crisis happen. And 49 is going to be a Gemini prophetic year, second house year. It's going to activate the Mercury. The Mercury is over here with the Venus, who's Lord of the sixth house. And I don't have time to really get into it, but Mars is in transiting Gemini and becomes active and is aspecting the ninth. Basically, what happened was her bone marrow stopped producing white blood cells, and I think red blood cells. She had to get they had to put her in the hospital. They had to give her many transfusions. Remember the Marka planets for this are Mercury and Mars. And again, without technology, modern medicine, she would have definitely died. But she lived, and oddly, she did have a successful business, even though she was literally talking to patients on the phone from the hospital bed. She kept her business going. She had a reasonably successful year, but I will let you pause that. I brought this up, but you can read the brief chapter in Prashra about the Sudarshana Chakra. That's basically where you take the Lagna, the Chandra Lagna, and the Surya Lagna, kind of line them up, perfect it, and look for things that come together to make predictions. This is an example. Just skip that. And that's the end. And this is me. If you want more information on me, thank you so much. I hope this thing for people, and hopefully not too basic, but also gives you food to chew on in terms of using it, and also realizing that this technique, but they're not like talking to each other. But we now can go back realizing that and read all this stuff and pull it all together and make a more sophisticated system for us.
Very true. Very true. If you could really thank from my heart, you have brought in the Chakra Paddhati with the actual ancient source from the Western astrology point of view, or Hellenistic astrology. And it's really, really wonderful that you've done. You can see in the comment section, people have appreciated it quite a lot. I'm quite sure people have questions, but I would suggest quickly, if I were suggest how Mark Boniji is here, but if I may take a minute. My advice, I've been teaching this since many years. 15 years back, I wrote on it with the verses of reference notes of Chandrakala Nadi and how it was matching with the verses of. It was a revelation to me, only to realize much later that that it's already been discovered in the West. The secret is not to combine it. If you really want to master it, don't even look at the natal chart. I've demonstrated it in blind chart predictions many years back. I put it on the YouTube channel. Just ask a person his running age and then keep on predicting, so that your intuition becomes absolutely fine. That's one. Second, I tell all the students, Do not go for BCP part 2, that is for the dates. Master it. Then third, I tell them, obviously, the transits have to be looked at because every 12 years, as Kenneth said, it should not be repeated or events won't be repeated. So initially, I tell them, do not use transit. Just to sharpen your intuitive skills, just focus on the Rashi chart. That's it. Later, we can use Arudas. Arudas are fantastic. If you want to find out about people's marriage life, Upabhada Lagna you can take and rotate the chart year-wise, and many other things. A6, A9, A8. Using A8, the Aruda of the 8th house is wonderful. I've seen it. We teach that in our course. But anyway, thank you so much. With folded hands, I'm really happy. Today, you have taught us so much in such a short time and given a lot of food for thought. When people present here, I want you all to go through this recording by tomorrow. This recording, go through it several times, and you can become the best of predictor. Because today, Kenneth taught you his experience, and in such a short time to teach it is impossible. Thank you so much, Kenneth.
Thank you so much, and have a lovely rest of the day. And I'll see you.
We're going to have you on 9th or 9th of July or 16th of July or 8th, whatever, which day you're comfortable. We're going to deep. So you start preparing for your next lecture. All right. If you have time.